Southern California, good afternoon, and welcome to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. We have a jam-packed show for you all as we have a lot to get into, such as the Rams going into the bye, but not before they lost their second in a row to the San Francisco 49ers. Should we be concerned, or is this nothing but a blip on the radar? And then the Chargers fell to the Vikings as Mike Zimmer continues to own them. Should I be concerned about the Chargers as they go into Sunday's matchup against the Pittsburgh Steelers? Or is this nothing more than just a slip-up? And then LAFC and the LA Galaxy both are out of the playoffs. They both fell short of making the postseason as I'm about to get into them. But how about some good news? How about some Shohei Ohtani being the unanimous MVP? Great stuff for Mr. Shohei Ohtani. Showtime himself. Bright spot for the Angels' bleak year. All that and more here on the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. This is Teran Rodriguez bringing you another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. And welcome one, welcome all to another edition of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Thank you all for joining me on this beautiful Friday afternoon. I am glad to be back after a 1-week break, just because last week, let's just say I had to take a little bit of a business trip, and unfortunately I just could not squeeze the SoCal Supreme Sports Show in that amount of time that I had to leave. So it's unfortunate. But, hey, I'm glad to be back, and I really hate that I had to miss last week due to the fact that I had so much to talk about, and I was about to get into so many different topics. But I'm back now, and without any further delay, let's get on into some Southern California sports action. But first and foremost, we got to get into some sponsors for IE Sports Radio. The first sponsor is Background Check International Businesses. Are you looking to background check a new hire on? Let Kit Freeman take care of that for you. Kit founded and has managed Background Check International since 1994, and he's here to help you with the screening process. Contact Kit and let him help make the hiring process that much easier. This business is used for professional background checks and not for the use of any crimes such as identity theft or other illegal activity. You can follow them on their website, www.bcint.com. You could also follow them on Facebook by typing in the word background, then check, then international, then dash, then BCI. So that's the first sponsor. The second sponsor is the Southern California Warriors. And I might as well just get into this first topic. So I was going to talk about this topic last week, but unfortunately, like I said, I had a business trip and I couldn't attend. So last week, or the week before, the SoCal Warriors sadly lost their playoff game to the Riverside Disciples. They lost 14-0 as the season bitterly ended for the Warriors. But they had an outstanding season, and I am happy for them. And I enjoyed supporting the Southern California Warriors. I enjoyed PA announcing their game. I enjoyed seeing Larry B do his thing. I enjoyed supporting them all together. And I couldn't be more grateful for my time with the Southern California Warriors. And will I be able to get another chance to PA announce? That still remains to be seen. But we'll see. Time will tell. Anyway, as for the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team, the world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organization. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get film to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get the second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. You can follow them on Twitter at SoCal Warriors and on Instagram at Southern California_Warriors. And you can also follow them on Facebook by typing in the word Southern California and then Warriors. So thank you to our two sponsors for being the official sponsors of IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. As we welcome Mr. Marcus Losgray into the chat room, as he says, what up, Doe? And he says, it's time to break down those Chargers. And he says, sure you will. The fact that I went to Newport Beach all the way to Fallbrook to PA announce and to support them, I think that's a little dedicated if you ask me. Anyway, so Marcus did make note that it's time to break down those Chargers. Yeah, well, since I missed last week, I might as well make note that they did beat the Philadelphia Eagles 27-24. I knew it was going to be a one-score game just because the Eagles were the Chargers struggle on the road, especially going across the country. And I knew the Eagles with Jalen Hurts were going to give them a battle, especially with the Chargers not having Asante Samuel Jr. and Michael Davis. Mike Davis is on the Falcons. So the Chargers beat the Eagles a couple weeks ago. And then last weekend, the Chargers fell to the Minnesota Vikings 27-20. It seems like every Mike Zimmer team has gotten the better of the Chargers. And I didn't know the stat last year until the Colts defeated the Vikings, but Phillip Rivers had gone winless against every Mike Zimmer coach team. Now, I don't know how many teams Zimmer has coached, but I do know that the Chargers have had their struggles against Mike Zimmer and the Vikings. And last weekend was no exception. I had this strange feeling the Chargers were going to find some way to slip up against the Vikings. And honestly, they did not play their best game. I thought the offense was a little stagnant. The defense did all that it could, but unfortunately, Dalvin Cook gashed them. Or, as the Vikings would put it, they let Dalvin cook. So, it is unfortunate that the Chargers lost, and that is a kind of a crucial loss just because now the Chiefs are ahead of the AFC West. Feels like nothing happened at all. And it's a bummer because I thought the Chargers were over their tough schedule stretch. Because you look at their beginning schedule, like you compare their first 4 games of the season, they had some impressive wins, with the lone exception being against the Cowboys. And then you look at their next 4 games, or their last 4 games, they have not had the results they've been looking for. So, all in all for the Chargers, they kind of have to get it together just because the AFC West is getting tight. And more importantly, it's anyone's division. Even the Broncos can win it, which is so hard to believe. Even though I highly doubt the Broncos are winning it. As we welcome Pierre Moss into the chat room, he says, welcome back, Teran. Hey, thanks, Pierre. Glad to be back. So for the Chargers, they're 5-4. They are a half game behind the Chiefs, who play the Dallas Cowboys. As for the Chargers, they will be heading back home to SoFi to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Some people call it the Steelers, but I digress. So the Steelers are going to be questionable with Big Ben. Like, he unfortunately self-reported that he had contact tracing of COVID-19, and we don't know if he's going to be playing this week. Like, it could be Mason Rudolph at quarterback, or it could be Big Ben. Either way, I'm not overly concerned about the Steelers, and also they will be without Minkah Fitzpatrick, their safety, who also tested positive for COVID. And then also TJ Watt is most likely out due to a hip injury. I don't think they've ruled him out, but they said he was going to miss a few weeks. Basically, he got injured last weekend against the Detroit Lions, which the Steelers managed to tie that game, but that's not important. But TJ Watt did get hurt. It wasn't as bad as I originally first saw it, but it looks like TJ Watt avoided a big-time injury. Though, I don't know. Maybe he'll play against the Chargers. Maybe he won't. One thing is for certain is that the Chargers might not have Joey Bosa or Jerry Tillery, as they both tested positive for COVID. And the sad thing is for Bosa is that he is not vaccinated, which that's a little frustrating, but it is what it is. I mean, they haven't ruled Bosa or Tillery out yet, but it's looking like they could be without Bosa and Tillery. And then Drew Tranquill is most likely looking like he's trending toward being out, just because he contacted he got COVID. Well, he didn't get COVID, but he traced COVID, and unfortunately he was out against the Vikings. And the funny thing is that Tranquill is actually vaccinated, so you all got to be careful of this Rona. The Rona takes no prisoners, so there's that right there. So it looks like the Chargers are really going to have to step up, and they're really going to be thin when it comes to the defensive front. They at least have Derwin James. They did get Asante Samuel back from injury, but we don't know the whereabouts of what's-his-face, Nasir Adderley or Mike Davis. It looks like they're both trending when it comes to playing. It's not 100% certain, but hopefully the Chargers do get some of their defensive guys back. The ones that haven't been practicing this week are Alohi Gilman, Linval Joseph, and Trey Marshall, and also Mark Webb Jr. Now, Linval Joseph I'm a little concerned for, just because he had to do a lot when it came to his game against the Vikings, which was his former team. And he has a shoulder injury, while Marshall is nursing an ankle injury, Gilman is nursing a quadricep injury, and Mark Webb is nursing a knee injury. Honestly, I'm not concerned about Alohi Gilman. I'm just going to be honest, I don't really like Alohi Gilman. He's not the best safety in the world, and the fact that he actually, I don't mean to say this in a negative way, he's kind of more of a liability than an asset. Just because against the Vikings, he did not do a whole lot good. He ran into Derwin James, he missed tackles, it was almost as bad as Chris Harris Jr.'s missed assignments when it came to the Vikings. And also, something else I gotta note is that why was Chris Harris Jr. covering Justin Jefferson? Chris Harris Jr. cannot keep up with that speed that Justin Jefferson has. Put Samuel on him. I know the Chargers are thin at quarterback, but why are we placing a 30-some-year-old man on a young 20-year-old boy? It makes zero sense. Anyway, back to the Chargers. So, like I said, the Chargers are playing the Steelers this weekend, and it's going to be rather interesting. Number one, because I don't know how they're going to stop the run game against Najee Harris. That dude is basically a wrecking ball, despite him only being a rookie. And Marcus says he got smoked. Facts. That's facts right there. Harris Jr. got smoked. Cooked. Now imagine if he had to chase down Dalvin Cook. Dalvin would have cooked CHJ. I'm bad with these puns today. Anyway, so the Steelers are going to be a challenge, and I would not be surprised if the Yinzers came out and flocked all over SoFi, kind of like they did a couple seasons ago back at Dignity Health Sports Park. But all in all for the Chargers, they're not concerned about if there's more of the opposing fans than the Chargers fans. Like, all that matters to Brandon Staley, and he even said this, all that matters to them is the Chargers versus their opponent. They don't care about the outside noise, and they've had to go through a silent snap count, which is very understandable. So, all in all for the Chargers, this is kind of must-win territory, just because they face another tough opponent. I don't think the Steelers are a guaranteed win, just because they're 5-3-1. Like, yes, they tied to the Lions, but they didn't have Big Ben. Like, I think it could have been a little bit more better, and I honestly think that losing TJ Watt kind of hurt them as well. So, all in all for the Chargers, they really got to beat the Steelers for this one. They are 6-point favorites, but as we have seen in weeks past, the Chargers, which have been favorites, are kind of dropped the ball when it comes to being favorites against some of these teams. Like, they were favorites against the Vikings. They wound up belly flopping. They were favorites against the Patriots. They wound up belly flopping against the Patriots. And Larry B pops in. He says, on my lunch break, enjoying the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Hey, thanks, brother. And yeah, and I hope you're enjoying your lunch, and hopefully that lunch is delicious and nutritious, but mostly delicious. And he says the Steelers tied the Lions. Yep, they did. So, but the Chargers definitely need to beat the Steelers just because that AFC West is getting tight. I don't want to hope for this, but I would also be great to see the Bengals beating the Raiders and the Cowboys beating the Chiefs. I'm not going to bank on those teams beating them, just because Bengals, Raiders is a pick'em, and then Cowboys, Chiefs can also be high scoring, just because. And the Cowboys are probably the most impressive team in the NFL. I'm not saying they're the best team in the NFL. That's because they had that blip against the Broncos. But the Broncos have kind of owned the Cowboys in years past. So, all in all and then also it's any given Sunday. Gotta throw that out there. So, all in all, the Chargers have to do business with them first. As the old saying goes, you can only control what you can control. Once you get your stuff out of the way, then you could see what else is happening with all the other teams. It went something along those lines. All in all, I don't expect an easy battle from the Steelers, but the Chargers need to rise to the occasion. That offense needs to start clicking, and sometimes they kind of need to go for the deep ball. I mean, it's understandable that they don't want to go for the big yards. Sometimes you gotta hit base hits in order to get the home run. But it would be better if the Chargers were to maybe go back to throwing the deep ball, because Justin Herbert loves that deep ball. So all in all for the Chargers, they have the work cut out for them, but I think it's doable that they can win. It's not going to be easy, though, just because Mike Tomlin is a fantastic coach. He has never had a season where the Steelers have finished under 500. It's quite incredible. So I'm going to say the Chargers win 28-20. I think that sounds like a realistic score. And I don't know if Big Ben will play. Again, it's still up in the air if Big Ben will start or if Mason Rudolph will start. But honestly, I think the Chargers need to be prepared either way, especially if they don't have Joey Bosa or Jerry Tillery or Drew Tranquill. Like, they're all going to need to step up, especially defensively. And they actually did a decent job against the run game against the Vikings. The numbers may not show it, but Dalvin Cook could have gashed the Chargers for a lot worse. So I expect the Chargers to get back on track. And if they win by more than one score, then awesome. But I don't expect it to be an easy battle for the Chargers, especially when I said this on Twitter. Their next three games are against the Steelers, the Broncos, at the Broncos, and at Bengals. Realistically, the Chargers could go 3-0, but they could also go 0-3. And I see you in the chat room, Marcus, saying we have the better Bosa in San Francisco. Yeah. Just you keep saying that, buddy. I see you in the chat room, though. Anyway, so all in all for the Chargers, I have them winning, but I would not be surprised if the Steelers gave them a tough matchup. Also, this is Justin Herbert's first Sunday Night Football game, and I may have to miss a little of it just because I'm going to a banquet, but all in all, I still will catch a majority of the Chargers game against the Steelers. So we'll see what will happen on Sunday. So that's that for the Chargers. Now we jump on over to the Rams. And I don't know who had the worst week, the Chargers or the Rams. The Rams, I think, is a good candidate to say that they've had the worst week between those two teams, as the Rams lost to the 49ers on Monday Night Football 31-10. It was the lowest point output that the Rams put out, as they only scored a whopping 10 points. 10 points. And then Matt Stafford threw 2 interceptions for the second straight week, and one of those interceptions went for a pick 6, which was absolutely disappointing. I actually expected better from the Rams. They were undefeated on the road, and coincidentally, the 49ers were winless at home. But I guess for some odd reason, the 49ers just have that great and better game plan against the Rams, which I kind of find that hard to believe. I didn't catch the full game just because I was doing set point at the time, but honestly, the 49ers really brought it to the Rams. And I know Marcus is probably giddy about me talking about the 49ers, but honestly, I can't fault the 49ers. They jumped out to a 14-0 lead, and then they never relinquished it. And I give them credit. They held the Rams to their lowest scoring output this season. They dropped 31 on the Rams, and the Rams just never got comfortable. And every ball that the receivers had when it came to the Rams, they dropped. Tyler Higbee dropped a pass. Even Cooper Kupp dropped a pass. Van Jefferson juggled a pass while he caught it out of bounds, which was ruled incomplete. Even Odell Beckham Jr. was not fully involved. And speaking of wide receivers, it did not help that the Rams did not have Robert Woods, who is out for the season. So, honestly, it really sucks that losing Robert Woods did not help the Rams. But I forget who said this, but I think it was someone on ESPN or NBC. They now said that Odell Beckham Jr. went from luxury to necessity. As now, with Robert Woods being out for the season, the wide receiver 2 is now Odell Beckham Jr., who the Rams just recently signed. And Marcus says they heard footsteps, Teran. Yep, they did indeed they did indeed hear footsteps. And all in all, the Niners have now won 5 in a row against the Rams, and this kind of makes me happy that I'm not a full-on Rams fan, but it's still rather mind-blowing that the 49ers still have that winning formula against the Rams. And also, Jimmy G has just basically had that winning formula for the Rams. And Gina G, thank you for tuning in. She says, "Hey, Teran, have an amazing show. Sorry I'm late." Oh, you're right on time, all right. You are right on time for me ripping the Rams. As, once again, the Rams have now shown a few cracks within their perfection, as they've now lost back-to-back games. Fortunately for them, they are at the bye week, and fortunately for them, they'll have a chance to recollect themselves, but they will be heading up to Wisconsin to take on the Green Bay Packers, as they basically put a hurting on the Seahawks. They shut them out for the first time in Russell Wilson's career. So, all in all, it's really mind-blowing. Like, I try to warn everybody that the Rams are finally hitting the tougher portion of their schedule. They no longer have any gimme wins. And even with some of those gimme wins, like the only one being against the Lions, that wasn't really a gimme win. Like, the Lions actually had to make the Rams work for that win. And this was kind of what I was attesting to. Like, if they couldn't easily beat the Lions, how are they going to beat the Titans or the 49ers? And, yeah, I see you, Gina, in the chat room. She says, Stafford or Goff, we own McVay, Aaron Donald, and the Lambs. Well, I'd rather you all own the Lamb. I'd rather the Rams have a better record than the 49ers just have two guaranteed wins. And, I mean, yeah, it's concerning for the Rams being owned by the 49ers, but at least the 49ers are winning some of their other games. Can't really say that about the 49ers, though. And, yes, we all know who Deebo Samuel is. And, Marcus, how have you not been noticing the Lambs as of late? Either way, the Rams really got to get their you-know-what together. I understand it's been an emotional time with losing Robert Woods, and then obviously Von Miller's now easing into the defense, or trying to ease his way into the defense. But honestly, I expected better. Like, if the Rams had just lost by like 3 or 1 score, it would have been a little understandable. But 21, like, I know the Rams are so much better than that. Like, that's not the team that everyone was projecting them to win the Super Bowl. No. So, all in all, for the Rams, they got a lot of work to do. And like I said, they need to start being a little bit more. They need to start reestablishing their comfort in uncomfortable environments. And personally, I think they kind of underestimated their tough portion of the schedule. I think they underestimated the Titans despite the Titans losing Derrick Henry. I think they underestimated the 49ers despite the 49ers having a sub-500 record and being winless at Levi Stadium. I think the Rams really need to have this look in the mirror and say to themselves, what are we doing wrong? And honestly, they're still in the hunt. And no, the Rams are not delusional, Gina. Not even close. But that being said, they do need this humbling. Like, the Rams need 2 humblings, and they really need to look at the next opponent, being the Packers. And keep in mind, the Packers did beat the Rams back in the NFC divisional round last year, so this could kind of be a little bit of a grudge match game. And if the Rams really are adamant of possibly being the number 1 seed in the NFC, or at least winning the NFC West, they have to start making their opponents uncomfortable. They have to pull out a big win on the road. And honestly, they can't afford to be complacent. They can't afford to be stagnant. Their receivers can't drop the ball. Like, I'm surprised they didn't really get the run game going. I know Darrell Henderson, I think I heard Darrell Henderson got dinged up in that game, but he wasn't out of the game. He was just dinged up a little. So all in all, for the Rams, this was kind of a humbling experience. I thought they got their humbling last week against the Titans, or the previous week against the Titans, but I think for the Rams, they now got to look a little bit harder in the mirror. So, and also, Stafford cannot be throwing 2 interceptions, with one being a pick 6. Like, if they do that, the Rams will not win the Super Bowl. Let's get that out of the way. The Rams will not be in the Super Bowl, and Stafford will still be back to square one. So, all in all, it's just going to take a little bit. The Rams are just going to have to work a little bit harder, because they got their bye this week, yes, but once again, the schedule is getting tougher and tougher for them as they have the Packers after the bye. The only guaranteed win, and this is And I say the word guarantee a little loosely just because nothing is really guaranteed in the NFL, especially with all the upsets flying around. With their only true guaranteed match on paper is against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and that's going to be a little bit of a toughie right there. I wouldn't say they're fully tough, but the Jaguars still have James Robinson. Trevor Lawrence is starting to become a little bit more comfortable, and I know the receiving game hasn't really been the best, but especially with DJ Chark going out. But all in all, the Rams can't take anyone for granted going forward because the last 5 games are kind of brutal. They're against playoff hopeful or playoff possible teams. Like, after the Jaguars, the Rams have the Cardinals. They're at Arizona to take on the Cardinals on Monday Night Football. And then they play the Seahawks at SoFi, then the Vikings at Minnesota, then the Ravens. That's going to be a brutal one, as the Ravens have kind of been off and on, but I think the Ravens are going to get it figured out eventually. So the Rams play the Ravens in their second to last regular season game of the season, and then the Rams close out the season against the 49ers. Niners. So all in all for the Rams, they still are in a good position. They're 7-3. Like, again, I'd rather be 7-3 than own an opponent, because if you're just owning one opponent and you're not picking up other wins, that's not a recipe for success when it comes to making the playoffs. Especially with how the NFC is starting to get very competitive. Because if the playoffs ended today, the Rams would be the 5 seed, and they would be hitting the road to take on Tampa Bay. Now, that is a very scary situation for the Rams. Like, hitting the road to play Tampa Bay. I've seen the Rams win at SoFi against the Bucs, but winning at Tampa could be a little bit more of a challenge. And yes, I'm sorry, Marcus. I didn't mean to use that joke. But the Rams would be rather fascinating. Rams versus Bucs would be rather a fascinating first-round matchup. And that could go either way. The Rams have won on the road, but it was against Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. I sound like a jerk for saying that. But all in all, it would be... The NFC is starting to really become competitive. Even the 49ers are actually having a good possibility of making the postseason. They're still in the hunt. Even the Panthers, even the Eagles, heck, even the Falcons, even though they got demolished by the Patriots, are still in the playoff hunt. And that can go double for the AFC, as the Chargers, if the playoffs started today, would be taking on the Buffalo Bills, which would be a huge oof, just because they have to travel across the country, they're facing Bills Mafia, and then they're also facing a very tough Josh Allen team with Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley. So, all in all, for the Chargers and the Rams, they still have plenty of time, but they really need to get their you-know-what together. And then also, for the Chargers, every game to them is precious, because looking at their schedule and knowing them, no game is guaranteed for them, since they love to make things really tough for us. Rolls eyes. Anyway, so like I said, after the Chargers play the Steelers, they will be hitting the road to take on Denver. Now, Denver on paper looks like an easy win for the Chargers. However, the Chargers struggle at Mile High Stadium. I don't know why, but the Chargers struggle immensely when it comes to playing the Broncos in Denver. It boggles my mind. And then after the Broncos, the Chargers will stay on the road to take on the Bengals, as they play 2 days after my birthday. And then the following week, they're at the Giants, which they should win, but if Saquon Barkley is fully healthy and gashing that run defense, then yikes. And then the Chargers have the Chiefs following the Giants. Then they are at the Texans, which they'll get to face their old buddy Tyrod Taylor. Then they are at the Broncos, or they're home against the Broncos in their second to last game of the season. And then they are at Allegiant Stadium to take on the Raiders, which that game could be big depending on if the Raiders are still in contention for a playoff spot, and vice versa. So we'll see. Something else I do need to note for the Chargers, and I actually promised one of my buddies that I would make note of this. Rashawn Slater has been an absolute gift for the Chargers. He has been an absolute treat. Chris Collinsworth made note of this yesterday, but Rashawn Slater is only allowing pressures once every 29 snaps. And he says he is the best rookie left tackle over the past decade. Now that is rather impressive, especially since the Chargers were unable to get Penei Sewell. And honestly, I think he could make the case, which is a bit of a stretch, but he could legit make the case for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Now, it's tough for offensive linemen getting that award just because he's got to compete with Jamar Chase of the Bengals, then he's got to compete with Mac Jones of the Patriots, but the fact that he is only allowing pressure once every 29 snaps is absolutely amazing. And honestly, the Chargers hit a home run with Slater, and I couldn't be more happy because I hate to say it, but Christian Darrisaw, and I hope he continues to develop, Darrisaw hasn't really panned out for the Vikings, and he's kind of been battling injury. And then also, Penei Sewell's been in and out of injuries when it comes to the Lions. So, all in all, for the Chargers, at least Rashawn Slater is developing. Now, coercively for the Rams, they're going to need their players to develop, like OBJ and Von Miller, especially since now they're kind of in that mode where they need to win a good portion of their games. So we'll see what happens for the Rams and the Chargers going forward. So all in all, I'm excited for this weekend, but I'm also a little nervous. But as one guy once said, if you're not nervous, you're not ready. And on that note, that's going to do it for the NFL portion of this show. Let us jump on into some NCAA football, as this week is USC versus UCLA week, which is awesome sauce, and I can't wait for it. So as for UCLA, they actually beat Colorado. They actually beat the living you-know-what out of the Buffaloes, which is no surprise. Colorado has not really been the greatest of teams this season, as the Bruins defeated the Buffs 44-20. Now, you're probably wondering, Teran, why are you making note of UCLA trouncing Colorado? That win is significant due to the fact that UCLA is now 6-4, and they are now eligible to go bowling, which, as a USC fan, I have mixed feelings about that. But good for Chip Kelly. Like, I'm glad someone's been able to turn that program around. So, good for Chip Kelly and UCLA. That's a little golf clap. So, UCLA... Larry says he's not looking forward to tomorrow. Yeah, I'm not either. As UCLA will be hitting the road to take on USC, yes, 20 minutes down the road, as they'll be playing USC in the Coliseum. UCLA is surprisingly a 3.5 point favorite, and USC is the current holder of the bell. For those wondering who USC played last week, they didn't play. Their game against Cal got postponed due to Cal having multiple players contract COVID, which that really sucked. And you know what else sucked? Cal losing to Arizona. They lost a couple weeks ago 10-3 against Arizona, which, oh my goodness. I feel bad for Cal, and I know Cal isn't really Southern California, but I do need to make note of that. As for USC, they will basically be coming off of a second bye, as they have... I feel USC can beat UCLA. I think on paper, with USC starting Jackson Dart, I think he will be able to lead the Trojans to victory. And Marcus says we are going to put pause on them tomorrow. He says if USC does not win tomorrow, I want all the coaches walked out. Let the players coach themselves the rest of the season. Well, at this point, this is kind of do or die for USC if they want to continue to go bowling. Just because USC isn't bowl game eligible just yet. Hence the word just yet. They can be if they win 2 out of 3. I think they can beat UCLA, like I said. BYU is another story. BYU is still good, even though Zach Wilson graduated, or he left for the draft, but still. I think BYU is going to give USC a toughie, but I definitely see USC defeating Cal. Like, USC has to defeat Cal. There's no other explanation. So, if USC can win 2 out of their next 3, they're bowl game eligible. And it would suck for the seniors to go out on that sour of a note, especially since they lost Drake London to injury. So, all in all, for USC, they definitely need to win 2 out of their next 3. And honestly, this week means a whole lot more for USC than just a win and a loss. This means bragging rights and then sending the seniors out with a positive instead of a negative. And also, it would just be for pride. Like, I really want to see USC have some positive in their season. Like, there hasn't, of their wins this season, they haven't really had too many positives. Yes, they were able to topple Colorado, continuing the winning streak over Colorado. But other than that, every game has been ugly, minus San Jose State. That was the first game of the season. And then Washington State. That was also a bottom feeder right there. So, all in all, I really want to see USC posting I won't say statement victory, but it would be considered a good victory for them. A victory that their fans can be happy for. So, all in all, I have USC winning. Since I know both teams love to score multiple points, I'm going to say USC wins 38-31. I think it'll be a high-scoring affair, and I think USC will have just enough when it comes to beat the Bruins. I will eat my crow if I am incorrect, and I will let UCLA fans dunk all over me, but all in all for USC, I think it's still going to be their year. I think they can definitely, and I mean definitely, win against the Bruins. Am I guaranteeing this? Sure, I will guarantee it. Guaranteed! So, yeah, I just guaranteed it. Hopefully I am not wrong, otherwise I will be eating loads of crow next week. But I got the USC Trojans beating the UCLA Bruins. We gotta give some USC fans something to smile about, including myself. Anyway, so for San Diego State, the other Southern California FBS team, they pulled out a gutsy victory over Nevada as they won 23-21. I was seeing that game, and I was fearing that San Diego State was going to blow the lead. Like, San Diego State had led throughout most of the game, and then Nevada was doing all that they can to claw back. And I'm like, gosh dang it, San Diego State, why do you got to make this so tough on your fans? Like, if I were a San Diego State fan, which I'm not fully, but I'm, for purposes of, I definitely need to make note of San Diego State, I would be afraid. I would have someone do a health and wellness check on me every quarter. So, anyway, for San Diego State, they are now atop the Mountain West Western Division Conference as they lead Fresno State by half a game. San Diego State will be hitting the road to Sin City, a.k.a. UNLV, to take on UNLV on Saturday. San Diego State is surprisingly an 11-point favorite. As am I surprised? No, because San Diego State never makes this easy on themselves, and they never make this easy on their fans. They should beat the living tar out of UNLV. Like, there's no way they lose to UNLV. If they lose to UNLV, then they ought to be disqualified from everything. They need to be relegated. Relegated, I tells ya. And also, it's important for San Diego State to win because they're only a half game ahead of Fresno State. So, if the Aztecs run the table, or Fresno State loses to San Jose State, which I don't see happening, San Diego State will be representing the Western Division in the Mountain West Conference Championship game, as they would most likely play Utah State, which is understandable. And Fresno State is the only loss to San Diego State, so that would be a total kick to the face if San Diego State wound up being on the outside looking in when it comes to Fresno, when it comes to the Western Division of the Mountain West Conference. So we'll see what happens. Like, San Diego State does have a fairly favorable schedule as like I said, this week they're playing UNLV on the road, and then they'll return to Dignity Health Sports Park to take on Boise State on Friday at 9 a.m. 9 a.m. I hope they are ready for that, just because, first of all, I have a tough time getting out of bed. Like, today I got up at like 7, and I actually went straight back to bed. But I eventually got up to go to the gym and whatnot. But I digress on that. Anyway, so San Diego State really has to be prepared for their match against Boise State. That could be a possible lull, not a lull game, or a trap game, but a lull game, as they could get lulled to a false sense of security just because Boise State has not been the team that they have been this season. But Boise State is still in contention for the Mountain Division portion of the Mountain West Conference, and we shall see if they can continue their pursuits. But San Diego State needs to win their last 2 games. Yes, they could also hope that Fresno State loses to San Jose State, but that's not really ideal for the Aztecs, who are ranked number 19 in the coaches poll. So, all in all, we'll see what happens with San Diego State. They have to get through this week, but then they have to also accomplish their goal of beating Boise State, and if they do that, then they will be representing in the Mountain West Conference Championship game. So we'll see what happens. So that is that for some FBS football. For FCS football regarding Southern California, we had San Diego defeating Morehead State a couple weeks ago, 10-3. That is what we call a defensive battle, ladies and germs, as San Diego will be closing out its season tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time against Stetson. It's a road game, and looks like San Diego is most likely going to be in the championship game because they and Davidson are now tied for first place in the Pioneer Football League, which is actually impressive. Although Davidson did lose to Dayton last week, and Dayton is pretty good because you want to know who it's the home of? Brandon Staley. I'm sorry, I had to break that out. Anyway, so San Diego should be able to beat Stetson, and then Davidson, not Davidson Crooks, Davidson, the college, should be able to defeat Drake. And if that's the case, then Davidson and San Diego would be facing one another in the championship game, which that would be cool. I'd like to see that, and hopefully the Toreros would get the win, because I would be sad if they didn't. I would be pissed if they didn't. So, all in all, it's a good turnaround for San Diego, as I thought San Diego was going to be a bottom feeder after their after their embarrassing loss to Cal Poly, which was pretty bad. Speaking of Cal Poly, they actually won a game. They defeated Idaho State 32-29. I did not think Cal Poly would ever win a game. And this is in football, mind you, not volleyball or basketball, but Cal Poly won a game. They beat Idaho State, which had one win. Anyway, so Cal Poly closes out its season tomorrow at 5:05 p.m. Pacific time against Northern Arizona, aka the Jacks. And Northern Arizona they're having a slightly better season than Cal Poly, but I expect the Jacks to jack up and chop down the Mustangs. It's just been a very forgettable season for Cal Poly football, so oh well. It is what it is, and I kind of figured they would lose to the Sacramento State, which they did 41-9. Yikes! So yeah, that's pretty much that for Cal Poly and for the college football portion of the show. Let's jump to the MLS portion, just because I need to get this off my chest, and I need to go in on here. I need to go in, but first, before that. Speaking of soccer news, the NWSL managed to welcome a new team in their league, as they have welcomed the San Diego Wave Football Club. So NWSL finally has a team in Southern California. Yes, I am so happy, and I'm ready to follow this team into the sunset. Hopefully they're not hopefully I don't follow them into the sun. I'm just saying, y'all. Anyway, so welcome San Diego Wave FC to the Sports League and to the NWSL. I look forward to seeing you do your thing. Alright, so now it's time for me to go in on the LA Galaxy and LAFC. First of all, I'll start with LAFC. So LAFC got the living tar beaten out of them against Colorado 5-2. And as a result, LAFC is out of the playoffs. And Colorado, surprisingly, was able to win their way into being the number one seed of the MLS playoffs. So, good for Colorado. I knew there was a possibility as Kansas City lost and Seattle lost. But the fact that Colorado is now the number one seed in the MLS playoffs is really something. So, good for Colorado. But as for LAFC, they end the season out of the playoffs. They weren't really in contention to make the playoffs. They finished 9th in the Western Conference, so 2 back of Real Salt Lake, who clinched the final spot. And Real Salt Lake was the one that defeated Sporting KC. As a result of LAFC missing the playoffs, their manager, or coach, or however you soccer studs like to call it, Bob Bradley, got the axe. He got fired like a few days after. I think he got fired like 1 or 2 days ago, and honestly, it sucks, but LAFC just had a disappointing season, and I thought LAFC was better than that. And I guess LAFC fans thought that LAFC was better than that, especially when they love to run their mouth against Galaxy fans. Yeah. Anyway, for LAFC, yeah, it was just a disappointing season all in all, and they did show some signs of life, but then they kind of disappeared into the darkness. So, LAFC, you disappointed me. But that's not where the disappointment ends. The disappointment continues as the LA Galaxy missed the MLS playoffs as well. They tied their last game to Minnesota 3-3. I said this was going to be a crucial game, and the fact that they didn't win really hurt. It also did not help that the Galaxy wound up falling behind 2-0 after 34 minutes. They did get 1 goal before halftime, and then they got the equalizer 6 minutes into the second half. But then Minnesota got the next goal via an own goal courtesy of Julian Araujo. And then Javier Hernandez got the equalizer. But the Galaxy just could not find the back of the net. And it's very disappointing to see the Galaxy missing the postseason. They were in the top 7 throughout the entire season. And what happened was they just couldn't put it away. More importantly, they had a stretch of 7 or 8 games where they wound up only getting 1 point. 1 point! The Galaxy only got 1 point in a stretch of 7 to 8 games. You can't do that, my man. Like, it's so disappointing to see the Galaxy just having a great season, being resurged, and telling everybody that they're back, only to see them belly flopping on the last day and tying to Minnesota, and eventually being left out of the postseason via tiebreaker. Like, that's the worst thing. The Galaxy missed the playoffs due to tiebreaker just because they had the same number of points as Real Salt Lake, as they had 48, but due to them having fewer wins, that was it for the Galaxy. They're done. You're on the outside looking in. You finished 8th. You have to finish in the top 7. How could you, Galaxy? How could you? Why? I don't understand how. Like, do the Galaxy need to hire an exterminator? Do they have to clean house? I just don't get it. How could you, Galaxy? You broke my heart. Oh my goodness. Like, they've reached a level of pain that not even Chargers fans or Vikings fans could even fathom. Like, it makes 0 sense. So it's going to be another long off season for LAFC and the LA Galaxy, as they will be basically sitting on the couch of shame, watching all the other teams duke it out for the MLS Cup. Why do you gotta do this to me, Galaxy? At least they didn't lose in El Tráfico, but they tied twice in El Tráfico. So, at least they're not in too much turmoil, but the fact that they were in the top 7 throughout the entire season. They were a fixture in the top 7. And the fact that they belly flopped on the final day, they went Peyton Manning mode early, and it wasn't even the postseason. Gosh dang it, Galaxy. But hey, at least they scored. But hey, they had double the points they had last year. So, all in all, for the Galaxy, I'm proud of them, but not really proud of them. Just because they still missed the playoffs, and the fact that they had a stretch of where they only got 1 point out of 7 to 8 matches is really disappointing. So, it also doesn't help that their attrition or health did not really do them any good, but we'll see what happens for them going forward. Like, we'll see if they clean house or not. But all in all, that is going to do it for the MLS portion of the show. I sadly won't be talking about the MLS and the Galaxy and LAFC unless something big comes up. Most likely when LAFC does get a new coach/manager, but we'll see. So we'll take ourselves a quick little commercial break. When we come back, we'll have some NBA talk. We'll have a little NCAA men's and women's basketball talk. We'll have some NHL talk, and then, more importantly, we got the Dum Dum of the Week award. So you are listening to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show here on iSports Radio, your direct feed for all that sports. We'll be right back after this.
What's good, fight fans? It's your boy, Marcus Los Great, here to give you what you want, here to give you what you need. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm coming to you live, straight from your mama's basement with a crispy white tea. We are coming to you live every Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Sports fans, do you like teams that are tough, cities that are tougher, and fan bases that are passionate about their teams? How about teams that are historic and stadiums that are iconic? Then you belong in Chicago, and you need to check out Chi-Town Weekly. Join me, Adam Kernan, every week as we keep up with all things Chicago sports. Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks, Cubs, White Sox. We'll cover them all, plus more. The Windy City is always buzzing, and we'll keep you up on all the big games and major stories. So tune in to Chi-Town Weekly every week right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What is going on, everybody? This is Ben Matello, the host of the Yinza Report, right here on IE Sports Radio. I'm bringing you the latest in the Steel City, the City of Champions, from the Steelers, the Penguins, the Pirates, as well as the college game with both Penn State and Pitt. You could join me every Tuesday afternoon at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, right here on IE Sports Radio, where I'll be talking about everything from the Steel City, the City of Champions, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
And welcome back to the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. You can check out all of our amazing shows on several different streaming platforms such as Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, GeoSavin, the list goes on and on. And thank you to Gina G for still being here. She says she's still here. I appreciate you, Gina. It really means a lot that you're supporting the show. And definitely do check out Reppin' to NorCal Sports. I promise you she does a great job, even though she calls the Rams the Lambs. All right, so let's get on into segment number 2 of the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. So let's talk some NBA action. So it's been rather rough for the Lakers as LeBron James is still out, and oh my goodness, the Lakers have just been so inconsistent. I actually was with my buddy yesterday, who is also a huge diehard Laker fan, and he says this is his least favorite Laker team that he's watched. He said he cannot watch them anymore. He's not a Russell Westbrook fan. He's never been a LeBron fan, and he's not a Carmelo fan. And they don't play defense, they don't play hard, and they keep getting banged up. Hence LeBron James being out. And I don't blame him for saying that. It's been frustrating times for Lakers fans, and I am starting to lose a little faith on the Lakers. They've at least they at least got a decent win a couple weeks ago against the Heat, and the Hornets weren't necessarily a bad loss. But losing to the Trailblazers kind of left a sour taste in my mouth, as the Trailblazers, of course, the Lakers were the team that allowed Damian Lillard to get back on track. Ugh. And then, like I said, the Hornets and the Heat were amazing victories, but against the Timberwolves, they looked so terrible. They got whooped, 107-83. It makes no sense. Like, how do you get whooped by the Timberwolves? Yes, Karl Anthony Towns is a monster, but at home? Oof. And then the Lakers defeated the Spurs a couple nights after that, 114-106. But then they got trounced by the Chicago Bulls, 121-103. And that was actually the homecoming game for one being named Alex Caruso. And I'm just going to say this like it is. The more the days pass, the more letting Alex Caruso go or letting Alex Caruso walk and sign with the Bulls is really starting to hurt. And honestly, it really, really, really sucks. I really wish the Lakers did not let him walk. Like, it really is heartbreaking. And then on Wednesday, the Lakers got beaten by the Bucks 109-102. I know the Lakers are still banged up, but they got to have other players step up, like Russell Westbrook and AD, even though he's been banged up a little. And they also have to have some of their other complementary players step up. Like Carmelo has been stepping up, and Talen Horton-Tucker just came back. And Gina says, "Did you hear what Stephen A. said about LeBron?" He said a lot of things about LeBron. I think I remember he said that he's seen LeBron. I think what I remember was he said that he's seen LeBron win his last championship as a player. And if that's the case, I would for his sake on the Lakers, I would hope not. But honestly, it's kind of tough because he is getting up there in age, and how long can his body last? Like, Kobe's couldn't really last that long, and God bless Kobe every day. Kobe did all that he could to try to will the Lakers back to relevancy until he had a torn rotator cuff, and he had that ACL, which he ruptured against Golden State that one game, and all sorts of injuries just caught up to him. So, yeah, it's looking really doubtful for LeBron. Like, this is kind of for the Lakers, this is kind of win now and not win for the future, or wait for the future. But I just don't see how they're going to do it with all their players getting banged up and with Russell Westbrook just continuing to turn the ball over. Like, he's going to have more turnovers than a bakery. Like, he might as well just open a bakery and call it Russell Westbrook's fresh turnovers. Like, I don't want to be faithless to the Lakers. Like, I will forever believe in them. But every time they lose some of these winnable games, I just feel a little bit more doubt creeps in. So we'll see what happens going forward as the Lakers take on the Boston Celtics tonight at 4:30. Now, I want to say that this is a crucial game for the Lakers. Not just because they need to stay above 500, but this is personal. When it's Lakers versus Celtics, they need to come up big. I don't want to hear the excuses. It's time for the Lakers to start stepping the frick up. And they have to against the Celtics. Like, this is their big time rival here. Like, and Gina says Westbrook is overrated and has been for a while despite his triple doubles. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it, but it's looking like the Lakers lost the Russell Westbrook trade. And I don't want to admit that. I don't want to. But if he keeps making Shaqtin' a fool mistakes, I can't justify him just because he's making mistakes that I can't even imagine. Like, he was on Shaq Nafool for passing it off of Anthony Davis's head. It's like, what are you doing, man? Like, he's going to probably be the new JaVale McGee when it comes to Russell, or when it comes to Shaq Nafool. Like, it's possible. Like he's going to be picked on when it comes to Shaq Nafool. So I do agree with Gina and how he says he's overrated, even though he does have impressive triple doubles. But at the same time, he's got to tone it down when it comes to those turnovers, especially if he wants the Lakers to be successful. So elsewhere on the Lakers schedule, they're already on their Grammy road trip, and so far they're 0 for 1. Hopefully they'll be 1-1. On Sunday, they get a little bit more of an easier matchup as they take on the Detroit Pistons. I say a little bit more just because we don't know what's going to be the status for some of these Lakers players. And then on Tuesday, the Lakers head up to the Big Apple to take on the New York Knicks. And then the following day, the Lakers will be heading down to Indiana to take on the Pacers. And then next Friday, the Lakers will be heading back to Staples to take on the Sacramento Kings. So, all in all for the Lakers, well, actually, this isn't really their Grammy road trip. This is only a 5-game road trip. This is kind of like their December road trip, their annual December 5-game roadie. So, but all in all, I really want the Lakers to at least go 3-2 on this. I realistically think they can, but the Pacers are I think the Pacers are leading the league in rebounds, which is kind of surprising. The Celtics are certainly beatable, but the Lakers actually have to play above their competition. The Pistons are for sure beatable, and then the Knicks are still an unknown. Like, the Knicks are kind of this Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde team. Like, one night they're really good, and they're like primetime basketball, and then the next night they look very questionable, and they make me think the Knicks are back. But all in all for the Lakers, they still have plenty of time, but I think it's still very early in the season. There's 16 games in their season. They're nowhere where they want to be, but they really need to get their you-know-whats together. LeBron James is a game-time decision tonight, and Anthony Davis is probable, so hopefully we will be seeing the return of the King. I hope it's so, just because the Lakers kind of need all that they need against the Boston Celtics. Like, I at least want to see the Lakers beating the Celtics once. No more of this losing to the Celtics business. I'm just saying, y'all. And also no more of this losing to the Oklahoma City Thunder thing. Like, no, please stop. Anyway, so that's going to do it for the Lakers. Not much to talk about when it comes to the Lake Show. Again, they're just banged up at the moment, and it's kind of tough to watch them when I'm busy. I did see the last bit of their game against the Heat until my brother decided to take over. Here's the thing. My brother lives in Texas, and he and I share a television plan on Sling. And if one person watches the same channel, then someone gets it overridden. And, take, for example, I'm watching the Lakers versus the Heat, and then he wants to watch Lakers versus the Heat elsewhere. And then he's basically gets to watch it on his TV. And I'm a nice guy, and I let him. So, there's that. So, while I don't like it, I like being fair. So, there's that. So, now we jump on over to the Clippers. Now, the Clippers have actually had a lot more success despite not having Kawhi Leonard. And that is huge right there. Like, they actually had themselves a 7-game winning streak. Yeah, 7-game winning streak before it got snapped against the Chicago Bulls on their LA road trip, or their West Coast road trip. So, yeah, it was a bummer that the Clippers lost to the Bulls, but the Bulls are good. They are legit good. Lonzo Ball is ballin'. Alex Caruso is adapting well. He's more of a plus guy than he's been more of a plus for the Bulls in terms of plus minus. And the Clippers trounced the Spurs on Tuesday, and then yesterday the Clippers I wouldn't say they got whooped, but they got beaten by the Grizzlies 120-108, and they have had trouble beating the Grizzlies, but that's because Ja Morant and J to the third power, Jaren Jackson Jr. is balling out for the Grizzlies. And again, it doesn't help that the Clippers don't have Kawhi Leonard, but on the bright side of things, Paul George he's not doing bad, actually. He's doing rather impressive for him not being a number one guy. He's averaging 26.7 points per game, which is actually fourth in the NBA. He's averaging 8 boards a game, which is kind of impressive for only being 6'8". So all in all, I think Paul George is adapting well to his role on the Clippers, and I think it's due to a testament of him possibly, getting his feet wet with the Clippers, where in year one he still hadn't had his feet wet. He was on a team where he needed to be the number 2 or number 3 star. The list goes on. And then obviously the bubble playoffs where they choked that 3-1 lead. Yeah. So the Clippers will be back on the road again as they take on the Pelicans. And then Sunday they are back home against the Mavericks. They actually have 2 games against the Mavericks. One being on Sunday and the second being on Tuesday. And then next Friday they play the Detroit Pistons at home. So they're almost done with their mini 2-game roadie as they'll be heading home for a 6-game homestand. Yeah, 6-game homestand, which will be capped off with a game against games against the Warriors and the Clippers, or the Warriors and the Pelicans. Speaking of the Pelicans, and I know they're not Southern California, but what is going on with the Pelicans? They look atrocious this year. I know they don't have Zion Williamson, but good Lord, I did not expect him to be this bad. Them and the Rockets, well, the Rockets were a guarantee to being bad, but still, I didn't expect the Pelicans to be so horrible, but it is what it is. So that's pretty much going to do it for some NBA action. Let's briefly jump into some NCAA men's basketball action as UCLA and USC are both undefeated to start the season. Yay! I won't jump to all the teams, but tonight we have Cal State Fullerton taking on San Diego, and then in a little Southern California showdown action. Then on the women's side, we've got Bakersfield taking on number 15 Oregon State, which handed California Baptist. Yes, it's California Baptist, not Cal Baptist. It's either California Baptist or CBU. You call it that. That is the official name that you have to call them. I don't want to hear any excuses. Anyway, California Baptist lost to Oregon State a couple nights ago. That was their first regular season loss since 2 seasons ago. Because for everyone that doesn't remember, California Baptist went undefeated in the regular season, and unfortunately due to the transition sit-out period from NCAA Division II to Division I, they cannot, and I repeat, cannot partake in the NCAA tournament, which is complete booty-doo, as now California Baptist had to have played in the NIVC, where they got all the way to the quarterfinals. Anyway, so back to the men's basketball side of things. So USC is currently undefeated, which is great stuff. And they're actually ranked number 25, which is awesome sauce. And I couldn't be more proud of USC. They're actually doing good despite graduating or losing out on Evan Mobley because he's in the NBA. And I can't wait to see what USC has to offer. I think they could do some big damage. and it's going to be fun. Their next game is against Dixie State, and that's going to be on Monday. USC does have the Wooden Legacy, if I'm not mistaken. They have some sort of They have some sort of like mini tournament, which could also feature San Diego State. Which, if we get USC versus San Diego State, I will have the greatest joy in the world. And then also I gotta make note that USC beat Temple 76-71, which was quite an impressive victory. Like, even though USC was up near by 20 at halftime, and they almost kind of let the lead slip away, Temple's not an easy opponent to defeat, especially when Khalif Battle had 26 points. So, good for USC. They're undefeated going into Monday's game. And then they've got St. Joseph in the Paycom Wooden Legacy. And then depending on what happens next depends on who they'll play following that. They also start Pac-12 play very early as they play Utah on Wednesday. And then they play Wednesday, December 1st. And then they've got Washington State the day after my birthday, December 4th. So, there's that. So, that is that for USC. Now, for UCLA, which is currently the number 2 team in the nation, they actually pulled off an impressive victory last Friday against Villanova as they won in overtime, 86-77, which was absolutely amazing. Number 4 Villanova, mind you, and that is primetime TV right there. And the fact that it went overtime was absolutely astounding. Even though UCLA was pulling on the heartstrings of all of their fans, it was still a big dub, as UCLA is currently 4-0 to start the season. They also have beaten Bakersfield 95-58. They also beat my beloved Long Beach State. I can't say 49ers. They beat Long Beach State 100-79, though the first half was close. And then they also beat North Florida 98-63. So all in all, other than Villanova, UCLA has meant business. And this coming Tuesday, they got a big game. They play Gonzaga, and that is going to be the freaking most funnest game ever. Why? And I know funnest isn't really a word, but it's going to be so amazing just because it's a rematch of last year's Final Four matchup where UCLA lost at the buzzer. It's going to be so freaking amazing. That is primetime television right there, baby. I really want to see that matchup. It's going to be amazing, fun, and it's going to be super lit. It's going to be 50-50 right there. Johnny Juzang is going to want a little revenge, and it's going to be played at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas, Nevada. And both teams are currently undefeated. But first, before UCLA plays Gonzaga, they actually play Bellarmine in the Good Sam Empire Classic. So basically, they're playing in like a little tournament and whatnot. But that Gonzaga versus UCLA matchup is going to be primetime television right there. It is going to be an absolute barn burner. And they also play North Carolina on Saturday, December 18th. That's going to be even more lit. So I'm so excited for what UCLA has to offer. Like, is it weird to think that I actually could be caring more about UCLA than maybe the Lakers and Clippers? No, I'm getting this strange feeling. Anyway, that's going to do it for some NCAA men's basketball talk. So let's jump on over to some NHL talk, as the Ducks unfortunately had their 8-match winning streak snapped as they lost to the Carolina Hurricanes 2-1. Though the Hurricanes are really good. Like, they were 12-2 going into that match, and Carolina unfortunately squeaked one out against the Ducks. Though the Ducks are still having an impressive season. They unfortunately fell to third in the Pacific, but it's all good. Like, at least the Ducks are better than they were starting out. Like, starting out, it looked as if they were going to be bottom feeders in the Pacific Division, but then they rose to the occasion. They're only one game back of Edmonton, and they're also tied with Calgary in terms of points. So we'll see what happens to the Ducks going forward. The Kings also had a rough one on Wednesday against the Capitals as they lost 2-0. And they also lost to the Winnipeg Jets 3-2 in overtime, which was also a bummer. The Kings were also winning their games too until they lost to the Jets and the Caps. But you're facing Alex Ovechkin. What do you want to do? So anyway, the Kings play Carolina tonight, and then they play the Arizona Coyotes on Sunday, and then they play the Toronto Maple Leafs on Wednesday. All these games are home, mind you. And they also play the Senators on next Saturday. So there's that right there for the Kings and their up-and-coming schedule. As for the little Ducklings, they don't have a game this weekend, but are back at it on Monday against the Nashville Predators. Then on Wednesday, they play the Colorado Avalanche at Colorado. Then on next Friday, they take on the Senators. And also something to note is that the Ducks and the Kings will be facing one another on Tuesday, November 30th. And that's going to be the first, I think that's the first installment of the Crosstown Showdown, or whatever their rivalry is called. Either way, I'm going to enjoy Ducks versus Kings in the first installment. So this is going to be a fun time for the Ducks and the Kings. Like, the Kings aren't even too far back of the Pacific Division. They are currently 5th, if I'm not mistaken, as the Kings are 5th in the division, while the Ducks are 3rd in the division. So it's still very much early, and the Kings only have 18 points, but again, they're doing much better than they have been in recent past. At least they're not the Kraken. No offense, Seattle fans. Like, the Kraken were the first team to give the Arizona Coyotes their first win of the season, and boy howdy, that is not fun for the Kraken, but it is what it is. At least the Ducks and the Kings are doing good, and I kind of got to give them a quick round of applause. Okay, it's not that great, but still. Please keep it up, Ducks and Kings. I'm looking at you, Ducks. Don't you dare disappoint me. Anyway, that's going to do it for the NHL portion of the show. I know it was brief, but I've been on here for almost 90 minutes. But before we get off of here, we need to have the Dum Dum of the Week award. Now, the Dum Dum of the Week award, for those of you that don't know, is basically someone that does something ridiculously dumb. And no one is safe from this award. Anybody can win this award. It could be my neighbor, it could be the alley cat, it could be my neighbor's dog, it could be anyone or anything that wins the Dum Dum of the Week award. And like I said, nobody is safe. And I've got 2 Dum Dum of the Week awards. And by the way, last week I posted the Dum Dum of the Week awards for the previous week on Twitter. But the first Dum Dum of the Week award goes to someone who did something ridiculously dumb in an NFL game. So this happened when the Seattle Seahawks and the Green Bay Packers faced one another. And there was a little bit of a skirmish, or a scuffle, or whatever you kids like to call it, a little fight going on, and one of the players decided to actually grab a hold of, one of the Seahawks players grabbed a hold of the Green Bay Packers player helmet. So there was that, and he was just yanking on it, holding on for dear life, being a bully. And after that, he got tossed. So, and I'm obviously referring to DK Metcalf. DK Metcalf he obviously got his cage rattled, and unfortunately, DK lost his cool, and he got ejected. But that's not why he's going to be Dum Dum of the Week award. The reason why he's Dum Dum of the Week award is what he did afterward. So after DK Metcalf got tossed, the next play, and this was in the fourth quarter, the next play, DK Metcalf thought it was a great idea to re-enter the game when the referee wasn't really looking. And he also thought that it was a great idea to blend in and fool the referee to thinking that he wasn't the one, that he was ejected. DK, there are two problems with this theory. Number one, you are 6'2" and you are very muscular. You really think that the referees are not going to notice you. Second of all, wouldn't you get fined? Wouldn't you face punishment if you were ejected and you entered a game? Like, why would anyone in their right mind say or do anything like that? Maybe DK didn't hear that he was ejected, but the fact that he went back into the lineup despite him being tossed is really dumb. It's so illogical. I just couldn't believe it. It's like, why? Why would you, first of all, get tossed, and then second of all, not go back to the locker room and then try to get back into the lineup? Maybe there was miscommunication, but Pete Carroll or the other coaches should have said to him, hey, DK, you're not back into the lineup. Like it makes no sense. Like, DK, what are you doing, man? It just... Oh my god. Like, I couldn't believe this when I first saw it. Like, it was almost too bad to be true. And more importantly, then he got tossed. So, for you, Mr. DK Metcalf of the Seattle Seahawks, you are this week's Dum Dum of the Week award.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that is Dum Dum of the Week number 1. And my bad, that was me just pumping up my speaker volume. So that was Dum Dum of the Week number 1. Now, Dum Dum of the Week number 2. Ooh. Dum Dum of the Week award number 2. Oh my goodness. This might be the Dum Dum of the Week award for life. Because what I am about to tell you is about to blow your mind. And this happened on November 16th, which was Tuesday. So this news was broken out, and boy howdy, I could not believe this news. It was so mind-blowing to hear this news. So I couldn't believe what I heard when it came to this, but according to Shams, I forget his last name, probably a name I will probably butcher for the love of me. But Shams, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that. Shams Karanaya. Either way, Shams, the NBA reporter, reported that the Lakers and Clippers, as well as the Sparks and the LA Kings, his home, the Staples Center, is going to be renamed the Crypto.com Arena. Let me say that again. Staples Center is about to be renamed the Crypto.com Arena. Are we kidding me right now? The Crypto.com Arena. First of all, Staples Center is a fixture. How dare you? How dare you, Crypto.com, for replacing an iconic name such as Staples Center? I can't believe that. I couldn't believe the news. It was almost too bad to be true. I could not believe it. It was like, there's no way. It can't be. And the worst part is, it's a part of a 20-year partnership. 20 years that we're going to be hearing the Crypto.com Arena, not Staples Center. Do you know how much history that's been? I could not believe it. It just, oh my God. As a Laker fan, a true blue Laker fan, and someone who is a huge advocate of the Staples Center, there's been lots of history going on in the Staples Center. Minus the Clippers. But seeing this happen, seeing Crypto.com Arena replace Staples Center is unacceptable. I don't want this to happen. It is ridiculous. It doesn't even have a good ring to it. The Crypto.com Arena, Staples Center has just a better ring to it. It makes no sense. So I don't know who approved of that when it came to Crypto.com, but I am just going to say this right now. Crypto.com, for agreeing to have a 20-year partnership with replacing the Staples Center name. You are this week's Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient. More importantly, you might be Dum Dum of the Week Award recipient for life.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
You know what? No. No. Crypto.com, you are Dum Dum of the Week for life. You are Dum Dum of the life of the eternity for the next 20 years. Tell it to him again.
So dumb. You are really dumb. For real.
And that, my friends, is all she wrote. The Dum Dum of the Week award, and probably the Dum Dum for life, is Crypto.com. How do you replace an iconic name such as Staples Center? Absolutely asinine. And like I said, how dare you? But on that note, one more thing to add is that I would like to congratulate Shohei Ohtani for being the unanimous MVP of the MLB, and it's the first unanimous MVP award recipient since, I think, Mike Trout, which, ironically enough, is on the Angels. So, good stuff for Shohei Ohtani, and it's a bright spot to a very bleak season for the Angels. But, on that note, that is going to do it for the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. Before I continue to lose my mind, I definitely want to say thank you to everyone tuning in, and without any further delay, let's get on out of here, because I got to get me ready for work, and I got to get me showered up. You dig? Thank you all once again for tuning into the SoCal Supreme Sports Show. I really do appreciate it. If you are listening live, I appreciate you. If you are listening via the playback, I appreciate you. If you're listening at any time of the day, I appreciate you. Big shout out to the chat room on Spreaker, Gina G, Larry B, Marcus Losgrade, and Pierre Moss for popping in. I really do appreciate y'all tuning in, and I'm glad Gina approves of the Dum Dum of the Week Award. And Gina says she loves my passion about Staples. Thank you. I mean, it's iconic, and even though the Honda Center was replaced the Arrowhead Pond, it's still forever the pond in my heart. But regardless, thank you, Gina. I definitely do appreciate you tuning in. She says, amazing show once again. Thank you, Gina. So for everyone here at iSports Radio, this is Teran Rodriguez signing off. You have yourself an amazing weekend. You all enjoy the sports that's happening right now. Be a good person. Don't be a dum-dum. Otherwise, you'll be the Dum-Dum of the Week Award recipient. And I will see you on Monday for Set Point. You all have a great weekend. And remember, SoCal is for SoCal. Peace.